Hello, Sarah. I'm so excited to have you here today. Welcome.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here with you.
And right now, you are planning to visit all of the 63 national parks in the United States. And you also said that you are planning to visit Australia and Antarctica, which are the two continents you didn't explore yet. And you do everything. Your mission is about wellness. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I'm very excited. I love to travel. I am a social impact photographer as one of the things I love to do. And I my mission is to illuminate as much beauty and kindness in the world because I think that that helps heal you. It's a better way to be around beauty and kindness. And so I've started these like missions to go different places, the 63 national parks. That kind of came after or during COVID when I couldn't really travel overseas. And then, of course, I want to do all seven continents. But yeah, it's you know, at the end of the day, if we're surrounding ourselves with these things and if we collectively are doing it, I just think that the world would be a better place, or it is a better place for me. And I feel like the people that I'm surrounded with that really recognize and are having their hearts and eyes open to the beauty all around them.
Mm.
So I just think it's a wonderful way to be in this noisy, often challenging world that we live in. So that's my goal with all of that.
And I'm curious because I think we can all quite easily relate how nature relates to our own wellness. So when you said you are traveling and you take photos, I think we can easily imagine how it relates to your wellness. But how it relates to wellness of all the other people, which I think it's the thing you are trying to do, as you just said. So where is the connection between the nature, you, and the other people?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, as you said, I have absolutely felt the benefits of being in nature. And it's absolutely scientifically backed that when you are in that nature, it really will give you a boost in mood, which makes you feel better. You're more optimistic. It's just a better way of being. So I feel like for me, um, my part in that is I know that to be sure for me so I can use myself as an example for other people. So when I go out and I capture something beautiful, or I get to talk to really amazing people making an impact and doing kind things in the world on my podcast, it allows people to see that they can too benefit from being out there in nature amongst this beauty, which again, I think beauty heals. Not, I think, I know it heals. So I'd say my position in it is to just facilitate that understanding of how good that will make people feel to just get out, even if it's 10 minutes a day in nature. And again, like I said earlier, if more people are doing that collectively, it's like an energy thing. If more people are realizing the benefits of it, more people are in better moods and feel better about the challenging world we're living in, the better the world is overall.
Mm. And
Yeah.
actually, that brings me to the other question I had because I know you are doing the mindful seeing challenges. And I have a favorite one, which is the heart challenge. When you ask people to look out in nature and see the heart shapes, I completely love it. So I wanted to ask, how did you come up with the idea? And why we should surround ourselves by nature and heal ourselves with the beauty.
I love that challenge too. I sometimes I repeat that challenge. If you have ever noticed, every once in a while, I'm like, I'm going to do that one again because that's my favorite one too. Um, I thought about it. Well, I first had started just by doing what I call today's wonderful, which is one photo a day every morning. I post in a few different places on social media. I'm looking at some alternative ways to do that in the future that are not social media, but to put out beauty in the world every day. I think if you have that regularly in your life, it's going to have an effect on you. So I started to do it. I started to kind of walk my talk and put it out there and regularly engage in it myself. So every morning, put a photo. Probably about a month or two into it, I was feeling like I wanted it to go beyond the photo for people so they could see the photo and engage in the beauty of the photo. But I wanted that photo to inspire and encourage them to go out and see beauty for themselves. So I thought, well, why don't I just say it and put some challenges out there as to what people can go out and look for in their regular day, because I think beauty is everywhere. I go to a lot of various places in the world. I'm very fortunate that I'm able to see different countries and different places in the United States, and I love it and I explore it and I capture it. However, especially during the pandemic, I really learned that you don't have to travel thousands of miles to see beauty, that it is all around you. It's at your fingertips. And so I wanted to create a way for people to regularly engage in it and have little simple challenges, nothing too crazy to do every day. So that's where that came from. And I've been doing that now on a daily basis for it'll be close to a year once I get to that mile marker of starting
Mhm.
the challenges. But I did it every day in 2022. I did a photo, and now I'm doing both the photo and the challenge, which has been really, really, I've enjoyed it myself to put that out there and to engage in it myself as well.
And honestly, I love your photos on Instagram. They are beautiful, and they, through all the noise and chaos on Instagram, I always look forward your photos. And probably you remember the day I also texted you that I found the heart on our papaya tree, where I was
Yeah.
so excited. And I love that you say that we don't have to travel far and that the beauty is at our fingertips. And I experienced something similar I think it was last week, and I actually don't remember what happened. I remember I had bad day and I just went out and we have this streets flowering. It has red flowers and I just kept looking at it and I felt better. And I think just the fact that I can't remember why my day was so bad, but I remember the tree and the flowers. It says everything basically.
It does. And, I think that, one of the other things with the challenges and just getting yourself out there, the more you get yourself out and the more you seek beauty, the more you'll see. So that's why I love talking about the hearts, because I bet everyone that gets off of this podcast that starts looking for naturally formed hearts, they're going to see more of them. It's called the frequency illusion. It's a scientifically based, backed, and based phenomenon that when we look for something, we're going to see more and more of it. It's like we're rewiring our brain. So if we're rewiring our brain to see more beauty, we're going to see more of it, and then it's going to be more of those effects, those benefits on our life. So I love that you went out and did that, because now you're feeling the effects of not even remembering why you were having a bad day. So the next time you're having a bad day, you'll do the same thing, and it's just going to amplify every time. And it's just a beautiful thing. It doesn't, and it's completely scientifically backed. I know it for sure for me. You're experiencing it. We can say that it happens for us, but it's a science thing,
Mm.
really, at the end of the day. Someone wrote probably many books about it. But for me, I really appreciate that that is and exists, and that you can just make that work in your favor. And it's simple.
Yeah. And it's actually the perfect segue to the next question I have. And it's because this podcast is about real life, and we have all days when we feel under the weather, we feel bad. And we know in our mind that going out or exercising or calling a friend, it will help us and we will feel better. But we don't do it because we are in that slump. We just want to do nothing or just cry a bit or be in the bed. So I wanted to ask you if you ever experienced this when you feel a bit down and you know that if you go out there you will feel better, but you feel that resistance of going and you don't want to go even if you know that it will make you feel better. So I wanted to ask if you experience it, and if yes, how do you deal with it?
Of course, I experienced that. I think that's a very natural thing for everyone to experience. And I think, mostly for me, it's about removing the barriers to doing something. So, when I think for me, sometimes in the winter time, it's winter in New Jersey in the United States, and it's cold out, and sometimes it's dreary out, and I just don't. I'm just not. I'm affected by the weather. When it's sunny out, I'm in a better mood. When it's dreary out, I'm not in that great of a mood. So a lot of times it happens when it's dreary out. So I think what I usually do is have things in place to make it easier for me to get out the door. So, have my all of my outer gear, have my camera. I usually bring my camera outside, all prepared to go. So there's all I have to do is literally put on my shoes and my jacket and go outside. And I also just continue to remind myself of how good it feels, like knowing the day prior that I went out, just reminding myself, I know that this is going to make me feel better, and just constantly like saying that sometimes out loud. I'm going to feel better. I just need to go outside, and it works. But I think it's just removing the barriers, because it's easy to get the excuses, right? Or even the one barrier is being cold outside, but also time, right? It's easy to say, oh no, you know what? I don't really have time to do that. So one of the barriers to that is to say, like, or one of the things to remove is that excuse is to say, well, I have 10 minutes, you know, because even if it's 10 minutes of getting outside, it's better than nothing. So I think sometimes if it's just a little bit, it's going to make a difference, to make you feel better.
Yeah,
So,
I'm a big fan of this actually barrier remover thing. Like I can share my own example with exercising. I
yeah.
used to go to the gym in the past when I lived in a very remote part of Zambia, and there we had no choice than going to the gym. So it was kind of doesn't count being diligent with the gym. But here, when I have a child and we live in a bigger town, it never worked, even if I tried. So what I start doing to make it really easy, because I know like the whole process of putting on the clothes and shoes and going out of the house. So I actually said like, okay, let me exercise maybe 10 or 15 minutes every day, and I don't change my clothes. So I watch some Pilates video and I do it in the clothes like I sit with, and it works because I don't have to spend 5 minutes to put on my clothes, put shoes, and then exercising 10 minutes. So I love your advice because I use the same, and I think actually it really works. And also that part of reminding ourselves how good we will feel once we overcome the moment when we don't feel like it and do it, then we really feel good about it.
Yeah, and then it becomes a habit. I think the more you remove the barriers and the more it just feels like part of your day, then it's not even like not as much maybe you feel like you don't want to do it because it just becomes part of your day. So I think the more you make it easier for it to just happen, the more it's
Mm.
a habit, and then you're in that complete flow of it all by doing that. So I love that you do the same thing. Of course you do.
Yeah, but
We're
it
on the
took
same
years of
page.
discovering. So I always
Yeah.
say also to find the perfect habit for us and how to make it work, it's lots of trial and error because usually we don't pick the first thing like what works for us. We just need to experiment and play with it. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that it can be that simple. I think both of the things that we're doing are not these like grandiose things to get us to take the walk or go and exercise.
yeah.
There are simple things that you can incorporate to just make it easier for yourself, um,
And
less challenging.
yeah. Then I have a couple of questions I like to ask everybody in the end, because the purpose of the podcast is to inspire other women who are listening. And as I just said, it's about testing and see what works for you, what works for me, and as many ideas we can have, I think the better. So I wanted to ask, I feel it's kind of obvious what we have been talking about, but I'm still going to ask, maybe you will surprise us. Like when you feel really down in the bad mood, what is the 100% sure thing that lifts you up?
Well, I'll start with the one obvious one, which is to get out and take my camera out and capture beauty and just be amongst beauty. I feel like you can't get angry at beauty, it's impossible. So it's a sure way for me to feel better. But I would also say to kind of change it up because we haven't talked about this at all. I do a lot of mindfulness and meditation and yoga, which every time I do any kind of yoga exercises and it could be short, 15 minutes or a meditation, I always feel better afterwards. With meditation, I feel more grounded and peaceful and calm. And with yoga, depending on what type, I can feel more invigorated and also grounded and calm. So I would say between those few things, those are kind of in my toolbox for when I'm having a bad day or feeling kind of not so great. Those few things are kind of my sure, like those tools are going to work. I just got to do it.
Thank you
So
for
yeah.
sharing with us, and we will add it to our lists. And
Oh,
then
good. I love that.
yeah, and I wanted to ask, because as I said, the podcast is for real women. We are all real people. Our lives are not perfect, and usually we have ups and downs in our life. So I was curious, what's really hard for you right now, and how you are dealing with it?
What's really hard for me, I'd say, is I I think I mentioned this a few minutes earlier. I'm really affected by weather and by environment. I'm super empathetic. And so I think when things are challenging in the world, so if there's world things going on, the news is bad, I tend to feel I take that on a lot for myself. So I, I'm become more and more aware of that. And I think the thing that I try to do is to take myself out of that by doing the things that I just talked about. But also just simply having the awareness around it, I think is the best thing that we can do because we all are going to have something that's going to challenge us in life. And it can be anything from, I don't have children, but the parenting, and that's very difficult. various jobs people have, various things you have to do in your everyday, health concerns. These are all things that I think we all deal with in varying degrees. And I think for me, yeah, I'd say the hardest thing for me right now is just being in a noisy, challenging world sometimes, and having to and navigating through that in a way that I'm a very optimistic person, and staying true to that, even in a world that's often negative, and
Mm.
kind of being met with that resistance of like, oh, you're all positive about this, but this is all really difficult, and really trying to be true to that without feeling like I shouldn't be positive, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it
So
does. And also, what I love, you said a couple of minutes earlier that you can't get angry at the beauty. And I remember it was the time when the war in Ukraine broke, and we were together in one group, and there was this discussion and kind of the pressure from the outside world, like why entrepreneurs or people should continue doing beautiful things when there is war in some part, when there is war in one part of the world. And as you said, like you can't get angry at beauty, and often like the beauty might be the only answer we might have in these challenging moments. So I'm really glad that you mentioned it, because often when bad things are happening, we feel, I think, that we are not entitled for the beauty. And I think it's very important to know that we are and we deserve that.
yeah, and I love this because that was a huge awakening for me that day when this was all happening. Because, like you said, it was a very difficult time, continues to be a very difficult time when it comes to that war. And one of the things that I discovered through that conversation is that war can't exist without beauty, and beauty can't exist without war. They coexist. So we get to choose which one we're going to lean towards and which one we're going to surround ourselves with. And so that was my awakening to I can choose to be around beauty and see the beauty in the situation, which for me was yes, this horrible situation is happening with the war, but there are all these people helping. There are all these people raising money to get supplies to send over to these people. There's all these people taking the refugees into their homes. How beautiful is it to see the kindness and that beauty happening in the face of this horrible war? So that was a really, I'm glad you brought that up because that was a profound moment, and a moment and an example of like, we don't have to go the way of the war or the negativity. We can choose to be in positivity. It's a choice we have.
Yeah, yeah, I love it, and I remember the day when this happened, and we talked about it. So I'm actually very happy. It was not planned to talk about it, but I'm really happy that it came up because
Yes.
I think that's something which is really inspiring.
Yeah,
And
I agree. I'm glad it came
talking
up
about
too.
inspiration, I wanted to ask who inspires you and why?
I have a lot of, I'd say, modern day people who inspire me, but I think when I'm asked this question, the person that always pops first into my mind is Mother Teresa. And I think it's because, going back to what I was just talking about, I, by nature, am a very positive and optimistic person. And in my life, I have kind of dampened that, especially when there is a lot of negativity and there's people doing not so nice things in the world. And you kind of sit back and you're like, oh, I don't want to be that positive person, like everything's okay. But I really loved how she just was one of the kindest people in the world. And she was positive and she was all about healing and, doing these wonderful things in service for people. And that's just inspiring to me that someone could be so true and authentically in her way. And for me, it's inspiring to say, I like use the positivity, use the beauty. I feel like that's a gift for me to feel that I can be positive in sometimes negative times, and not shy away from that. And, Mother Teresa's Mother Teresa. So she's an inspiration for sure. But, in the sense of that we have that choice again, like I think it's choosing to be positive, choosing to see beauty versus kind of getting stuck in this whirlwind that often we can very easily.
And I really resonate with that you're saying we have the option of choosing, and why I appreciate it so much, because I think naturally I was, or maybe I am still a bit, but I have worked on it. Like I am more negative person naturally. And I think it's also connected a bit to our culture and generally how Czech Republic is. Maybe because of all the years of communism and oppression. But it takes a lot of work and lots of how to say, determination to kind of shift this negative inclination into the positive. But I know it's completely possible for everybody. So I love, I think it was Gretchen Rubin who says, or maybe she had it from some research, that like naturally the way people are, we have certain kind of percentage of how optimistic we are. And we cannot move that much, but we can always move about like the border where we are at. So if somebody is more negative, we can still work on being more positive. So I like this, that there is always space to improve a bit and to work on it and to choose that, especially in the challenging times we have. And maybe looking from historic perspective, we are actually really lucky we live in this time, because it wouldn't be that challenging compared to other times, which we came to realize also maybe with the war in Ukraine, like how fortunate we were that we grew up in a world without a war. So I just wanted to thank you for sharing this. It's been very inspiring, and I think I need to look up some book about Mother Teresa as well, like to really learn about her life. So, and I love reading, so I think that's a great reading tip for next time.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, let me know if you do. I've read about her, but I wonder if there's a book about her, like a, biography or something like that. I want to look for that too. We'll have to share what we find.
Yeah.
She's a pretty amazing woman, though.
Mm.
Absolutely. And I love what you just talked about with culture too, because I think one of the things with when you're out and about, especially with traveling, but I think in general, like when you learn about different people's stories and learn about their cultures and what makes you different, I think it just makes you more aware of who you are, and aware of how there is so much diversity in this world. So I think I love that you brought that up about, how you grew up and how that can impact you. And I say the same thing from a travel standpoint. I love the immersion that can happen, that you can really learn and see the beautiful things in other cultures,
Mm.
when traveling too. So I just love that you brought up about culture, because I really think that's an important thing that I've grown from in all the years of traveling, and I appreciate the beauty of that for sure too.
Mm. And
So
I am sure about this topic we could talk for another half an hour. And it's super interesting, and how deep it can go, like that we are not even realizing we have something from our culture. But then when we start digging deeper, we realize things, and then we see, oh, maybe that's the reason why I was thinking this way. Maybe that's why I was behaving this way. So it's super interesting.
yeah,
But maybe that would be for another podcast episode. And Sarah,
absolutely.
like as the last question I wanted to ask, if there was one thing, the amazing women who are listening to this podcast, if there is one thing they could do after listening this podcast, what would you want it to be?
I would say go outside for 10 minutes. Wherever you live, wherever you are, go outside and just take in the beauty around you. I guarantee you will find something beautiful. You don't have to go out and find a naturally formed heart. You don't have to find anything specific. Just look around, go out without the earbuds in, listen, smell, just take in nature. You'll be amazed at how 10 minutes will make a difference in your life. And especially if you do it every day for the next week, the next month, you'll feel the benefits of that for sure.
Thank you. And I'm going to do it tomorrow because now it's almost 10 p.m. here. So
Oh my goodness.
I'm not going out right now, but I have some beautiful flowers here. So maybe I can explore that as well. And
Yes, yes.
thank you so much, Sarah, for being here today. And we talked about all the amazing work you are doing. We talked briefly about your podcast, about your photos you share on the social media. So if somebody wants to experience with you the beauty of the nature and the healing of the beauty, where they can find you.
Yeah, well, I have a website which is Project WonderFULL with 2Ls.com. So you can find my podcast there and you can find a bunch more there. But then also, as I explained earlier, I have my Today's Wonderful, which is an Instagram account. Same thing, Today's with an S, Wonderful with 2 L's. And I post there every morning. I post a photo and a mindful seeing challenge. So my goal with that again is for you to be able to engage in a little bit of what I am seeing and the beauty that I am seeing. And looking at that first thing in the morning, I feel like is a great thing to do. And then to go out and perhaps do the challenge every day. They're very simple challenges, mostly just to get outside and to just see the beauty that's around you, which is everywhere in the world, wherever you are.
Yeah. And I will
So,
share all the links in the show notes.
thank you so
And thank
much.
you so much. I
And
really
thank
love
you,
your
Susanna.
morning challenges, afternoon challenges for us, actually.
Yeah, I know. I got it. That's what I got to figure out too is how do I get it so that you guys get it earlier? That's part of my technological advancement I want to make in 2023. But I thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about this podcast and the messages that you're sharing with everyone and exposing to the world and beautiful people that are, I'm sure, going to come on here. So thank you so much for having me and having me share a little bit about how beauty heals because I believe in it so greatly, and I just hope that everyone listening um, takes a little bit of action on getting out in beauty and just taking that in. I hope that they feel the greatness of it all.